Hi, my name's Jimmy Tomczak. I'm an author, inspirer, and entrepreneur. I'm an outlier.
Welcome to Outlier on Air with Ever Gonzalez, the show where we interview the founders, disruptors, and mavens of the world. Learn how grit, failure, and success are all a part of the entrepreneurial journey.
Hey everybody, welcome to Outlier on Air, the podcast where we interview founders, disruptors, and mavens. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. On today's episode, we have Jimmy Tomczak. He's a serial entrepreneur, inspirer, connector, founder, inventor, author, just good overall person. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We're excited to have you here. You doing research on all of our guests, obviously, to help for the show. We could kind of get to know the people that we have on even before we start recording. But for you, I mean, you're living a little bit of a different life. Your experiences, the things that you're doing now, are a little bit different from the typical entrepreneurs that we have on our show. And so for this episode, we just want to get to know you, your background, what you're doing now, and like we talked about offline, we want to get to know the good, the bad, and the ugly of being an entrepreneur. So welcome, and we're excited to have you.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm an open book over here, so ask anything.
Let's do it.
I know that deep, dark, ugly, secret stuff is sometimes the most fun.
That's right. So before we really get into it, tell us where you're calling us from right now.
Sure, I'm actually in Ann Arbor, sunny Michigan. Usually I'm in the Detroit area, Grass Lake, out on the lake, something like that. But right now it is a gorgeous, gorgeous day in the summer college town of Ann Arbor.
So Ann Arbor, I mean, you're living there now. You've been there for a little while. What's life like there as far as what you're doing for work-wise and entrepreneurship type of events that you have there?
Yeah, so Michigan's a special place like that because obviously there's a lot of buzz in Detroit and the magic happening there. I can talk a little bit more about that later. I actually own a school building in Detroit, which is kind of a wild card one out there. But I'll just drop that and show you how it connects with everything else today. But yeah, see, that's the thing. Entrepreneurs know where to go, where the people are that they want to connect with, because people matter most. If I say something more than once on this, that's gonna be it. People matter most. And so as an entrepreneur is someone that's solving problems, but helping other people solve their problems. And a lot of times we won't even want to talk about problems to kick things off. We'll just want to connect with people that we enjoy spending time with. And so I would do that anywhere, whether it's New York, LA, San Francisco, Bangkok, Bali. I've been to all those places, but Michigan is where I call home. And Michigan's special because, yes, there's a ton of really cool stuff happening in Detroit, in the city itself, and in the suburbs, as well as Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, Lansing, West Michigan. And when you connect that entire ecosystem, you then have the knowledge capital, intellectual capital, social capital that places like Boston, LA, whatever do. But see, it's a little bit more spread out. And so a lot of us will be on the road just around the state, if not around the world.
You know, I'm originally from Southern California, from LA, and there's obviously a buzz down there with entrepreneurship and startups and just events and things like that. And when we think about those type of communities, we think of obviously San Francisco, New York, Chicago, like you're mentioning. But it's awesome to see all these different communities popping up all over the U.S. Ann Arbor being one of them. I mean, we're hearing some pretty cool things coming out of that area. But on top of that, I love the work-life balance that some of these smaller communities or some of these communities outside of these larger cities have to offer, right? Because you especially can do whatever you want to do, have a good life, an inspiring life, that type of stuff, but still kind of enjoy the scenery and just kind of have a good life out there. Not have to worry about traffic for an hour and a half or, taking the subway home or all that stuff. So congratulations. That's an awesome place to be. We hear a lot of good things coming out of that area. So congrats.
Thank you. Yeah. Contrast that to a couple years back when I was just getting started in my entrepreneurial adventures. I just graduated University of Michigan. Went to get a degree, neuroscience, thought I was going to go to med school instead. Ended up coming up with this idea for a product, inventing it, trying to patent it, and ultimately creating it and selling it on the world. But here in Michigan, it was a product that really no one paid attention to. So I had to go to the places
Interesting.
where people would. Where was that? That was New York. That was LA. And at the time, I didn't even have really the money to do it, the financial means to do it. And I actually won scholarships, grants, different incubators and accelerators when those were just getting started. And I was able to go to a place like LA and see what was happening. And at that time, I remember being in Boston in, gosh, that was probably 2009 and 10. And I got in the cab in this thick Boston accent. Where are you from? And I'm sitting in the back like, Detroit. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, it's not really like that, but
yeah,
like, of course, you're not going to tell him that, growing
yeah.
up in Boston and all that kind of stuff. Not even 2 years later, when I was traveling in LA and back in Boston, and I'd have the same conversation. Oh, where are you from? Detroit. I grew up in Detroit, born and raised. And they'd be like, oh, wow, yeah, I've heard a ton about it. What's it like? Tell me more. And that whole conversation was flipped, an evolution and just a new way of doing things. And that's thanks to a lot of the people that are here. Because as I went to all these different places, that was the biggest pain point for me as an entrepreneur. It's like, wow, now I have all these friends all over the place, and we talk to each other online. We'll maybe get on Skype, on a call, email, whatever, Facebook. But how do you maintain like a depth of relationship with people that you can't like be with in person all the time? And I really struggled with that for a little while. And my solution was to grow the community here in whatever way I could. And the way that I found to do that was through some of the events and experiences that I began really cultivating, kind of organically, because it just grew from stuff that I was already doing. I'd have a couple of close friends over for a bonfire. Well, you do that a couple times, especially back when people used Facebook events a lot more. You'd throw it up on there like, hey, Jimmy's, instead of putting Jimmy's bonfire number 3 or whatever, I'd come up with a name or a theme, or I'd tell people to do something. Hey, bring a friend, bring a stranger that nobody else knows, or like, wear boots and have a funny hat. So it could be anything, and people would really get into it, and it would kind of like relieve that. It kind of like real icebreakers, and then the real icebreakers. I hate even using the term icebreaker. It would just lead to real conversation, and sitting in a circle around a bonfire by a lake is just like one of the most powerful ways to do that.
I love it. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, man, we're either building companies or providing services or trying to build a product or something. So we have our heads down and we're involved, and that's all we do, right? We forget family, we forget friends, we forget to kind of connect and be inspired by others. And so the stuff that you were doing, that you were just talking about with events, man, that can go a long way. So this is a perfect transition. Let's talk about, and we're going to work backwards here. I want to talk about what you're working on now, then your previous company, and then just kind of growing up in Michigan. But right now, let's talk about what you're working on now. You have a book, and you're working on some of these other different things. Let's talk about that. Tell us what you're working on now. What's taking up most of your time?
Sure. So this book launch is the most exciting thing happening right now. Of course, summer in Michigan, taking up most of my time, is actually just like trying to do whatever I can to do as much as possible to free up as much time as possible to actually enjoy the little bit of gorgeous weather we get and have boats, beaches, lakes, and things like that. And actually, one of the biggest things I'm trying to do, this is not public. I don't really don't really share this with some of my closest friends. So why not share it with the world? I've been looking for a very special place to bring people together. Just like I believe you have sort of a summit coming up yourself, a mastermind group in September. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have retreats and conferences and pitch competitions. So we do a lot of these outdoorsy things, right? Get people out of their comfort zone a little bit and out of the office to kind of connect out in nature. I mean, we have our backyard's beautiful red mountains out here. So yeah, for sure.
Totally get it. And sometimes we need a change of scenery. And when we connected, and I look at LinkedIn and I look at some of the connections we have in common, and then I look at, the hundreds, you're over 300 podcasts in now. I've done a lot of podcasts, radio, TV, whatever. And, very, very few people have done that sheer volume at the quality that you've done it. And so it's so cool when yet, we don't have a lot of overlap on our network. So like, that's like a great example of like, okay, wait, I should probably be there because I could probably meet some amazing people and then connect them with people in my network.
For sure.
I don't even like using really the term network, but just, hey, people I know, people that are really great people. And so back to the cliffhanger from the previous sentence. So yeah, finding a place specifically on Lake Michigan. So I don't know if you know Lake Michigan. Maybe some of the listeners have been to Chicago, so you can kind of get a vibe for, waterways and lake and this kind of thing. But I mean, you're talking like waves that are surfable. Yes, people surf Lake Michigan.
Nice.
Sand beaches that are some of the best in the world, and an infinite horizon that when you look out, you just see like just lake for as far as you can see in both directions, north, south, and you're looking directly west as the sun sets.
That's beautiful.
And so that's the imagery that I'm trying to like paint for people, whatever they're looking at, wherever they're listening from, because just put yourself in like your own happy place and like, hey, that's mine. You're in the sand. You maybe have a couple friends, maybe you're by yourself, just kind of relaxing, and it's just this perfect summer night, and you're watching the sun go down, and as it like dips into the horizon, that's actually that capturing that essence is what I captured in the name of my most recent company, which is Wetstar.
Listen,
and what's
yeah, go ahead. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so Wetstar is a media and events company that creates world-class experiences for people that want to live their best life now.
How do you do that?
Exactly. How we do that is by connecting with the people who matter most, to do the things that matter most. So let's unpack that a little bit. What does that What does that mean exactly, right? So in entrepreneurship, we he's a successful entrepreneur. Well, what does that actually mean? And like, why would I introduce myself as, hi, I'm Jimmy Tomczak. I'm an inspirer or an inspirator. However, there's some different ways to think about what does that mean. I almost even struggle to claim that sometimes because what is inspiration really?
It means different things to different people, right?
Right, and at the end of the day, it isn't really anything. You can't buy it. You can't really give it. The only thing you can do is do the things that you believe in, that that you are, and then someday someone might walk up to you and be like, "Wow, that's inspiring." And that's what happened to me, and that's why I can now kind of like, okay, well, I didn't really think of it as that. It was just what I was doing at the time because it's something that I love to do, and some way that I could add value to the world, and some way that I could care more for those around me. And other people label that as, wow, that's amazing, or that's inspiring, and specifically that wow adjective. It's like, man, if we can all just do the things for us, not even for like everybody else or the world changers or all this stuff. If just for us, just for you, just for me, you can do something for yourself that makes you say, wow, maybe that is giving a gift to someone. Maybe that is, doing a podcast like your Successful Outlier show. Maybe that is writing a book. Maybe that is just going to your day job and giving it your best shot. Whatever it is, if you can do it at a level that is your best, you might find yourself saying, wow. And I find in those moments, those are the moments that matter most. And ultimately, those are the moments that lead to success. Because once you've defined what you'll have and who you'll be and who you'll spend your time with, and you know what that is, you'll realize there's a lot of ways to get there.
I like talking to people like you because you're doing something a little bit different. You're doing stuff like you just mentioned, that connects people, inspires people, that kind of stuff. Doing research on you and what you've done in the past, and just by talking to you here these last few minutes, obviously you're an intelligent guy. Obviously you know what you're doing, right? You could be making money elsewhere, at a corporate job or doing something a little bit different than this. There seems to be a spiritual and a soulful purpose to what you do. Why not go be a filthy capitalist somewhere else? I'm sure that you can make money a whole lot easier. Why this? I mean, why truly do this right now?
Sure. Well, now's the only time to do it. Right, Ever?
I like that answer.
Yeah. So I'll use the book as an example because it's the most tangible, physical, real, and now answer. Why did I write a book? It got to the point where I couldn't not write a book. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So the book, right? I always knew I'd write a book. It's kind of like these other I want to say like bucket list type stuff. I don't have a bucket list. I have some things that I want to experience and places that I want to go that I know and that I write down. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, kind of the craft and process of sort of educing those themes and elements that enable us to do the things that matter with people we like to do them with. But really, this book was I'll tell you how it came to be. So and this is part life story, part business story, part love story, all of it, right? And even with some poetry in there, because honestly, come on, nobody reads poetry. But if you slip some stuff in there, I can't say nobody reads poetry because I'm sure like you have so many listeners. There's like somebody out there.
We're gonna get some emails. Thanks now. Yeah.
Exactly. But I would just find myself writing stuff as another way of experiencing things. And I've kept a journal since I was like, oh my gosh, probably I have to look back at the original one because I think I was just learning cursive. So it was like second grade. How are older second graders? Like 8 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. So anyway, 20, 30, whatever, however many years of writing, it just kind of catches up with you. But it didn't really I started looking back at my journals and I realized I would like write where I went or like what I did instead of what I felt or like how it mattered. And so probably right around this tipping point of like you said, the spiritual and, hey, you could go, you're smart, you can go make a lot of money. Like, why wouldn't you just go make a lot of money? Well, this is where this comes in. All these places I went and people I'd see and things I'd do, I'd just write down, even if it was, verse or rhyming or some different poetic type stuff. And I would just like kind of squirrel it away and I wouldn't really share it. But then when I kind of came back to it and I did this experience, actually in Bali, I had mentioned that already, but I'll throw it out there again because I feel like your listeners would really probably haven't heard of something like this before because it was the world's first. It was the world's first decelerator program.
Instead of obviously the opposite, which there are a ton of accelerator programs, you went to a decelerator program.
Yes. So I went to Michel Bachmann, who was founder of Hub, Switzerland, and involved in so many different amazing entrepreneurial communities for true social innovators. I mean, much like myself, I did Starting Block. There's the Echoing Green and Unreasonable Institute and all these programs dedicated to not only doing good or not only doing well, but doing good, and doing good. Cut the butt,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I went to the world's first decelerator, and I was actually the youngest participant. I was, I believe, 26 years old at the time. This was just 2 or 3 years ago, and it was me to like this all the way to somebody who was 50 years old and ran like a chain of grocery stores in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And we came from all over the world and met on this little island, Gili Air, in Indonesia, and went with a week with no cell phone, no internet, no Wi-Fi. And
how
just
was that for you at that time? Was that tough
that was
to do?
amazing. Oh gosh, it was exactly what I needed.
Nice.
That was 2013, and it was the absolute craziest adventure of a year. You said we were talking kind of pre-show a little bit, catching up, and you talked about being in Utah, and I said, "Wow, yeah, amazing state." And you said, "Have I ever been?" And I said, "Yes, I've been." And it was this impromptu road trip that I took with a friend who was moving out to the tiniest city in, I don't want to say tiny city, whatever, the wilderness in Idaho. Most people think Idaho, they're like, potatoes? That's what I thought. And she's like, no, like, check this out. It's the Sawtooth Wilderness. And I'm like, I Google Stanley, Idaho, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like Sun Valley is probably something a little bit more people have heard of, but this is a little bit more off the beaten path. And oh man, it sure was climbing mountains. And
yeah, it's beautiful out there.
it's just absolutely gorgeous. And, so that was, this was like, I made the decision, I think it was like 2 a.m. the night before, where I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll go. And so, running a business at the time while also managing some real estate investments and some other projects that I had kind of bubbling at the time. I'm like, yeah, let's just go do this. I don't get a chance like this and, see the country and do the whole thing. And that was also the year that I was in at a retreat in Mexico with a bunch of entrepreneurs from all over the world to begin the year. This was like the middle of the year when I was going East Coast, West Coast for a bunch of different stuff. one of the companies that I was doing something with in the brand and marketing strategy space. I was one of the Google Glass innovators, whatever they called that at the time. And, went to San Francisco and picked up one of these and then flew back to Sun Valley and then went back to Stanley and all this other stuff. So to cap that year off, I went to Burning Man for the second time.
Nice.
And I'm like, while still also doing my business and also doing probably 3 other projects at the same time. And like, I came back and I'm like, okay, this is good. This is great. I mean, this has been the best year on record. I mean, I don't even think I realized that at the time until like looking back now. But what I'm saying is that I realized that, like, hey, less is more. And
at 26, by the way, we're at 26, 27, you're saying at the time?
Yeah, I'm 28 now, and this was 2013.
So most of us at that point would be like, this is great. I have the energy. I have the ability to do all this. Yeah, I'm not stopping or I'm not slowing down. What triggered that that shift or that mindset into like, maybe I should like start this program out here to kind of decelerate or just maybe slow it down a little bit?
Sure. So I saw that even more so now. I always thought that, man, I can stay up late, wake up early, get more done than anyone else I know, and like, make this magic happen, because it truly is magical when you're doing X and other people are doing Y, but somehow your X gets results that are 10X what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And they're like, how? And of course, some of it is genetics and this, but ultimately it's how you work, how hard you work, and how badly you want it, whatever it is, right? And so, for me, I just found that, like, okay, this has been great, but I actually truly want to build something that's lasting, because this was coming off of the failure of my first true company that had a product and customers around the world and all this other kind of stuff. I invented a minimalist sandal made from billboard vinyl, kind of out there, but this was at the time when Vibram's 5 Fingers was very popular, when barefooting was all the rage, when upcycling was also, so like all these 3 critical points kind of intersected. And I put this product out there and ended up getting some amazing press for it. And, Good Magazine picked it up, and then I sold a couple pairs, and then I did this, and then I sold some more, and then learned that, hey, this design isn't that great. We should kind of upgrade this, and then got a manufacturer here in Michigan. And then, the Wall Street Journal led to like Entrepreneur Magazine. And then I had already applied for Shark Tank like twice, and no one ever paid attention to it. And finally, when it was in Entrepreneur Magazine, I guess one of the producers cracked open a copy and like called me.
Nice.
And said, hey, we'd love to have you on the show. I mean, I'm paraphrasing because you still have to go through the entire process and this and that and everything else. But what's really wild is now, like, so that's all behind me. There is some of that on the internet. People can Google it if they want. But legally, I can only say that I was selected to appear, and the episode was taped, because ultimately it did not air. And like I said, ultimately that company does not exist anymore. But I mean, what an incredible learning experience to see something through from beginning to failure. And like,
so what did you learn? What did you learn through that experience? Right.
So here's the thing. When I set out, right, I was Jimmy. What's ultimately, like, if I asked you what's the difference between entrepreneurship and hustling, would you have an answer for me?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't think so. I think entrepreneurship is hustling.
It totally is. But here's a something I'll highlight. My entire life, I was always looking at, like, okay, lawn care Jimmy in high school, mowing lawns, seeing, entrepreneurs see opportunity. That's something that I'm really, really good at. Mm-hmm. So you'll see, I saw my neighbor's lawn, a foot high. Hey, like, I'll mow that for you for $20. The 14-year-old version of myself is like, wow, $20. This only took me 45 minutes. Okay. Fast forward a couple years later, when you have a bunch of contracts and you're busy all week and everything else, but still trying to, apply to college and ultimately go to college and do a couple different things. I was selling stuff on eBay. I ended the lawn care thing, and then I was focusing on my college career, and then kind of seeing what was after. And then ultimately, this was just something that kind of came upon me. I wanted, like, how is wealth created, or how do these entrepreneurs do these different things? And the lens that I was using at the time was that I saw basically like the creation of fad, like attention. So name some other footwear things that pop into your head. If I say fashion, fad, footwear, throw a couple out there.
Crocs, or whatever you call it,
Toms,
Toms for sure.
like Uggs,
Ugg
these.
boots, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, and even like,
And they come and go, right?
right, exactly. And so how do I really wanted to study, because what fascinates, I mean, why did I study neuroscience at Michigan? Ultimately, the brain is like the last frontier. There's so much we don't know about how the mind works, and yet we know so much. But yet it's like one of the last things that we can't explore the Wild West anymore. We can't go to California and do the gold rush thing. And yeah, we want to go to Mars, and that's cool too. And kudos to the people that have been on your show that are interested in that kind of stuff. But what I'm trying to say is that for me, it interests me because it was like a pretty out there kind of thing. And so I think, how do people think? And I said, okay, well, I can create the next fad footwear. Yes, like this will lead to fame and fortune. And that was what I chased. And probably at the detriment of like, man, you're sitting there like Thanksgiving and you're like, oh my gosh, like I got to ship orders tomorrow. Like, what is this? Black Friday, should I have been doing this? Like, did I do enough? Like, how can I chill? And this is how fat, like my mind is going 10 times faster than I'm talking right now. And you can't sit still, and yet you're being like quote unquote successful. And I was successful in that. And I learned so much. But what I learned was that like the fame and the fortune doesn't matter. It's an outcome of whatever you do. When you provide enough value, when you create enough impact, when you believe in yourself and who you are ultimately beyond just what you're doing.
With your book and with what you're doing now, the just kind of, again, the soulful, the spiritual kind of vibe that you have. Those that interact with you, that read your book, that go to events with you, things like that. What do you want us to learn from you and from the experiences that you've had and from the things that you're talking about and teaching?
Thanks. Yes. So think about like a mind, body, spirit connection. Okay. So entrepreneur, you can go learn how to make more money. It's not that hard. There's there's thousands of different ways to make money. I have a passage in my book that like kind of breaks down like how pretty much half of the Forbes 500 list of billionaires, like how they made their money. And like, what's the key point? Like literally anything. Okay, yeah, there's a couple like that are repetitive, but like it could be literally anything. And like you said, you can go do whatever you want to do and find a way to make money at it. Great, but it shouldn't just be about making money. Specifically, how can you focus on yourself? Like, do you go to sleep at the right time? Like for you, I don't know what that means. For whoever is listening, what does your body want or need to thrive? So the right food, the right sleep, the right relationships, the right people around you to support you when things aren't that great. Because so the book is called Lakeside and Tide. Mm-hmm. Lakeside and Tide, Tide.
I love it.
And it's about that cyclic flow of abundance in life. Okay, people talk about the entrepreneurial roller coaster. That's super cliche, but it's true. You're gonna have like, oh my gosh, like I was featured in this, and like my book's up for a National Book Award, and like all this other, like, and then the next day you're like, oh man, like, hey, this didn't come through. How am I gonna pay this bill tomorrow? And like,
yep.
Like my dog did this, and like what, all this crazy stuff that. How do you handle it? And the thing is, if you embrace both equally, love and live the highs just as much as these quote unquote lows, it just makes the flow so much better. And that's, like that sounds maybe a little wishy-washy for people that want to get like metrics and everything else. And don't get me wrong, I can go, Google Analytics and spreadsheets insane on you. But what like, in fact, I'd love to talk a little bit about that at some point, because for me, the question that got to that sort of answer that I got was like, what do you want? Like, if I asked you that, what do you want? Why does this podcast exist? We can go there, but perhaps the listener can just think about it for a second. Just think about it for a second. What do you want? If I ask you what you want, if you won the lotto, hey, what would you buy? What would you do with that money?
I love it. It's one of those things, right, where sometimes we get so caught up in in this game that when those questions are asked, we don't know sometimes. What do I want? Sometimes I don't know, right? What makes me happy? Yeah, maybe I can name off some surface level stuff, but what makes me truly happy, I'd probably have to think about it. I'm assuming a lot of our audience members would maybe feel the same way. So I this is what I like that the book and your message and the things that you're doing. Like, we have to stop and think about ourselves and what makes us happy. And if I won the lottery, would my life change? Probably not. Not. I would still have the
There
podcast. I
you
would
go.
still do events.
There you
Maybe
go.
I would travel a little bit more, but I'm doing stuff that makes me happy. And right now, that's all that matters to me. With my young kids and the wife and all that stuff. But that's like, I love where you're going with this. I love the message that you have. A lot of times, like I said, we get caught up in making money or building our products and our companies that we don't slow down enough to kind of see that all this other stuff is extremely important.
Absolutely. And that was that key point for me. It's like all these incredible people that I met from all over, and I'm thinking of one in particular, and she'd ask like, well, like, so what do you want, Jimmy? And like I didn't have a great, I could always ask these great questions because if you ask the right questions, you'll get the right answers. And I could always ask these amazing questions, but like when they were flipped back on me, I struggled. What did I want? And I'd always kind of defer it, like, oh, I have this like, loose idea of like, here's how it could kind of be. But really, when I focused on this super intentional process of what became an evolution of knowing that I was able to like go there. It's like a life compass. I have, I'll tell you how it exists now. It is not my book that I wrote. That's a piece of it. And ultimately, I mean, with all these people that I would connect with and be able to talk to, I just didn't have the time to like have the kind of depth conversation that I could easily get into that would take, an hour to 3 hours, and I would love it and they would love it and we'd leave so much better. But like for the amount of people that I want to help in the world, I don't have enough hours to have that many conversations. And so my book became a conversation that you can have with yourself. And so it's designed so that you could just open it to any, like, set an intention. What's bothering me right now, whatever. And you could open it to any page and get that slice of exactly what you need in that moment. Or you can read the whole thing through and get, life story, love story, business story, the whole kind of evolution of it. But each micro chapter kind of has like this almost like a workbook kind of essence. I don't want to say it's a workbook because it's actually this sort of coffee table quality hardcover. All right, that's something you'd want to use and pass
Display,
on to somebody that, yeah, exactly. It looks, you don't have to read it, you can just look at it, right? But that's what it was. I wanted people to go through that and ask those questions, because if they asked themselves those questions and actually sat down and wrote out the answers, and I say wrote out because you can think about it, but until you write it down and then see what it looks like as a list, then see what it looks like as a narrative, then put the narrative to pictures. This is a process that I built, that I help step people through so that can to that point. Because then once you have that, and here's how it exists for me right now. It's this, again, a hardcover, very nice book with it's like a vision board meets life narrative. And if ever I have anything that's troubling me, or that I need to remind myself of gratitude and how awesome things are, or even if I just want to be like, hey, this is great, and look back on it, it has the pictures of the cool stuff that I've done, some thoughts about where I'm going, and sort of the essence of why I do what I do and who I want to do it with.
As when I do interviews, whether it's good or bad, it just kind of happens. We and me specifically put people in categories sometimes, right? Oh, this is the hustler that came from nothing and became this, or this is the well-educated entrepreneur, and so we put people in categories. I put people in categories whether I like it or not. Sometimes it just happens. With you, not that I'm like truly trying to put you in a category or in a group, but I'm trying to figure out: are you more of a life coach, a business coach, a spiritual leader? Like, I'm trying to, again, good or bad, I'm trying to figure out where it is you fit in my in my world, right? As far as I understand it, would you even answer that question?
Sure.
Where do you see yourself? How do you see yourself?
Yeah. I see myself as somebody who's living.
Good answer.
So, hey, most vague answer ever. No, come on. All the skeptics be like, all right, hang up the phone,
This guy,
put
yeah.
the podcast off. This guy. But no. So here's the thing. I have a ton of friends that are coaches. I don't want to be a coach. I am not a coach.
Yeah,
Okay. If you need help with something, I'll find a way to help you. But it's probably not going to be in the form of you paying me and me being on a phone call with you.
hmm
Sorry.
that's
Find
great.
someone else. Go through the list of amazing people. Like if people are listening right now and they're looking at they're able to look at your website. Literally just scroll down through the like hundreds of people that have been on the show, and the first one that looks, you can even just go by like the picture because you're you know what you need. So like just, oh man, this person looks like somebody I'd like to talk to, and find a way to add value to their life, and then maybe have a conversation with them, and maybe they'll be able to help you, coach you through it. But for me, I'm always looking for the systems and processes that can optimize your impact. And so, like look, what are the tools that I've used? What are the tools that I know? What's in my toolkit, and what have I done? Right. So, I studied neuroscience, so I get like the engineering, hard science, details, science, math kind of background of it. So, okay, no problem with that. And then I jumped into some consulting where I did brand and marketing strategy. Specifically, I sort of apprenticed under one of my great friends and mentors, Scott Howman, and he is a namer and brand strategist. Worked with companies from Toshiba to Coca-Cola to major banks and other brands, to spell out exactly what they do, and that fascinated me because, like, I mean, did you ever have a pet?
Yeah, for
What
sure.
was its name?
Spencer, a black lab.
Spencer. And how did you come up with that name?
Actually, I don't remember.
Okay,
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't remember.
exactly. Well, here's the thing. A story, a lot of times there's like a story behind things. And if not, you can create one.
Uh-huh.
And that just absolutely fascinating me. There's a lot of people talking about like story and like, oh, storytelling will change everything. Well, no, we've always told stories for like millennia, back to sitting around the
Uh-huh.
campfire kind of thing. Here's the thing. So naming how you say what you do. If nobody knows what you do, nobody cares. So you have to craft it in a compelling way, and that's what sort of brand and marketing strategy taught me. Ultimately, I became very good at marketing my own startup, okay, and being a founder in that. And then, behind the scenes, I got involved in some real estate investing and sort of other passive income approaches to business. So I get the, hey, let's make money and just let it do its thing, which is fascinating because having never had money, to finally have a way to sort of create it where you're there's no such thing as passive income. If people are pursuing that as like some sort of get rich quick, just like stop now, like
Yeah.
you're going to work harder than you've ever worked before. But the beauty of it is that once it clicks, when it's going well, you are making money when you sleep. And when you can do that, you start asking yourself, well, what would I be doing? And you come back to that sort of lotto life approach to, you know hey, what if I did win the lotto? What is this like? And ultimately, like, what if everybody could kind of live their life like that? Yes, we still need like people that are going to provide or do some basic services and needs and things like that. But for the people that can, why wouldn't you use all your skills and abilities to do anything you can in the world? And so I spent basically the last like 5 years writing that book. Over my travels and the other business stuff and real estate stuff and consulting. And this goes back to the why did I go to a decelerator program? Because I was doing way too many things, and I wanted to pick one or two. Literally, I picked up a book while I was in Bangkok, okay, on the shelf, and I cracked open the page, and it said like, if you chase two rabbits, you won't catch either.
hmm
And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's why I'm here. And so, what is the one thing I'm going to chase? And at the time, that was a blog. That ultimately evolved into the basis of the book with
That's cool.
the success of the viral growth of that blog called Nothing Says, which took people to their edge and explored the things that you wouldn't usually say. And the premise of that was that if you told people, like your deepest, darkest secret, or like the thing nobody knows about you, and you just kind of like told them to like a stranger, like everything would be different, and everything was different. And so the best content from that and the best experiential stuff became sort of the pillars of the key points from this book that I was creating. And I wove it together with the writing that I had done over the 5-year entrepreneurial journey from, hustler, mowing lawns, kind of doing eBay stuff to, oh, here's what college is like, to, hey, here's what actually starting a single company is like, to, hey, here's what failing's like, and stepping through that whole process. And so last year was writing, editing, and ultimately publishing the book. And so this year is about putting it into the world.
And so now you have I guess the book is available now, but you have a launch coming up here pretty quick. Tell us about it, and what can we do to pick this book up?
Sure. So lakesideandtide.com is where you can go read an excerpt, look at it, buy it, love it, live it, the whole thing, the hardcover. And how that came to be was Kickstarter. Kickstarter is a great platform for anyone doing. I'm sure pretty much 90% of your readers have heard of it, and if not,
absolutely.
Just literally go to Kickstarter and find a gift for the next person that has a birthday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas in July, whatever the occasion. Just go to Kickstarter and support someone doing something, even if you don't know them. Yeah, just go out there and do it. And I did that for a little bit, just because there's so much amazing innovation happening. And so ultimately, I had a failed Kickstarter before for a different project, actually my first company. And so I still made it work for quite a time without that. And then so learning everything that I learned from a failed Kickstarter and then from all these other successful Kickstarters that I tracked, I said, I'm going to do this for my book. And remember the premise was I couldn't not do this. And so in saying that would be the case, I knew that when I clicked go on this Kickstarter, it would be successful. I did my homework, and I did, The Victory. If you've read The Art of War, or even Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art, they're both good books. You'll see that you'll know victory. The best victory is one where you know it before you even began, because you're going about it with such surgical integrity and precision and everything else that you're not just confident or cocky, but you've done your homework and you know that it's going to work. And so I did that, and over 100 backers supported and raised over $6,000 to print a first run printed in Ann Arbor by using a traditional offset press, this sort of heirloom quality, thick pages, hardcover, 3-piece case, die stamped book that would be something to remember, a work of art. And that's quite a departure from somebody that's going to write an ebook and pop it on Amazon for 99 cents and hope they have a bestseller. So now what I'm doing is with that content that's there, packaged and well, and it's out there. That's why it's on Lakeside and Tide, because the Kickstarter's done, and you can still purchase a copy and have it shipped to you in a beautiful package. And like I said, it's so the experience, right? I want to experience things. I want to learn. I love learning, so I want to. I don't just want this to be a book. I want this to be an experience in a box. And so when you get the box, you're like, wow, what is this box? And you open it up, and I'll just let the rest be a surprise. But also, obviously, there are people that just don't need or want another book around. And so, hey, this has to be on Amazon. And I've dragged my feet enough with a bunch of other projects happening. So it's hey, let's get this out there. And so more importantly, I owe my wonderful Kickstarter backers, some of them who are probably listening because some of them are my friends, and other people that I've met and supported me in the process, even if we've only met once. Sometimes, that can be enough to change someone's life.
Sure.
And so, you put that out there and make it happen. And so that's where that event comes in. I've done a lot of amazing events. And so I just wanted this experiential lakeshore gathering. Okay. We're talking live music, food, fire elements and art, as well as the book. And bringing people together that have maybe never met, that are interested in the same things. That's why we get together with the people that we get together with.
So is this more of an intimate type of thing, or are you inviting the world? What's the deal?
Oh, well, yeah. So the world, I mean, hey, if there's a listener on here and that really made an impact, I would love to chat. I think that sometimes people are scared to reach out or whatever, or oh man, he's busy, he'll never talk to me or whatever. But hey, there's Derek Sivers, who's over in Southeast Asia still, and he literally spends 4 to 6 hours a day replying to every email that he gets. That's his one public service thing that he does. And I truly believe that because communication is so important. And sometimes there's just like one little thing that, hey, if you thought about it differently or like pointed somebody to like one resource. And if there's some way that I can make some small impact in someone's life, I'm happy to do that. So in that sense, yes, it is open to the public. Like, I'm going to announce that, but it's obviously limited to capacity.
Sure.
And so it'd be to like, my list and my people that I know and those friends of friends first. But then, the public event, public launch on Amazon, as well as the tour, is where kind of everybody gets to jump in. And that's where the end of 2016 folds into 2017 and all the next adventures, because this is where you get to, categorize the entrepreneurship of Jimmy Tomczak a little bit more ever. And you realize that, I have a book, I'm on a tour, I'll be doing some video stuff, some more writing online, some courses, some, experiences, and sort of even subscription-based Patreon model to further allow people to experience everything that they know. Like if I could just like, look, you already have it within you, just like realize that. But sometimes you don't even realize where to start. And so I'd love to help people do that. And that's what, my next year is going to be about.
Well, no doubt we'll continue to follow you and your career and the things that you're doing. We would love to obviously continue to follow up and keep in touch and kind of, let our audience know as well the things that you're doing. So last couple of questions as we wrap this up, with everything that you're doing, everything that you've done, specifically, what are the next 3 years going to look like for you?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Gosh, it's going to be a great adventure. I feel like that, calling back to mind that cyclic flow of life that I talked about with Lakeside and Tide, right? The ups and the downs and everything else. Spending a year saying no to all the stuff that I wanted to say yes to, and cutting a bunch of consulting projects and other things to solely focus on writing was like really hard. And so I saw some of my financial resources dwindle and my social life go a little bit down and all this other stuff. But ultimately, hey, I wrote this book. And so the next 3 years are now about reconnecting, exploring, travel. Even in all the travel that I've done, there's still so much more to see, but It's not about seeing, it's about truly experiencing, and it's about the people you do that with. So just like there'll be this kickoff event here in Michigan, then the event comes to you. And that'll be happening over the next 3 years, as well as something I talked about earlier in the podcast here, finding a permanent home, a place to call home, where not only I live, but it's stunning enough and inspirational enough that when you look out over an an infinite horizon, you just experience that glint and glimmer of inspiration and inner quiet that can get you to a breakthrough. And so I'm really excited for what that is for me in the next couple of years.
I love it. Now, when all of this is said and done, right at the end of the day, how do you want to be remembered?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. Really, I mean, this book, that's part of the reason why I did it. I mean, it's legacy. Like, so much knowledge is forgotten, and I just want to be known as someone who truly inspired.
Perfect. Simple answer. Great answer. I love it. What for those of us that are interested in the book, in connecting with you, you write all the things that you've done, just kind of the again more of the soulful, spiritual kind of aspects of the things that you kind of bring to the table. Where can we find you online to connect?
Sure. So this internet thing with the Google, and if you type Jimmy Tomczak, just how it sounds, like something will pop up, and it'll probably be related to my stuff.
That's good enough.
No, my name's really hard to spell. It's Tomczak Polish if you're Polish, but we just say Tomczak, whatever. And so my website's jimmytomczak.com. Lakeside and Tide, I already threw that out there, but for the people still on the social media action, there's still Instagram, Facebook, and all that stuff. But really, email is a phenomenal way to keep in touch. And if you do type in my name, Jimmy Tomczak, on Google, those couple of things will be the first hits. And if you dig a little deeper, which will be worth it, you'll find great ways to connect. And that's my commitment to action and inspiration is find a way to make my life and the simplicity that I've found to be sustainable, and then be able to do that for my friends and family around me and show them that they can do the same, and then ultimately have that grow to people that we don't even know yet, so that ripple effect outward of abundance and peace, presence, and love can influence, the positive action and basically action that we need to live our best life now.
I love it. So Outliers, you can go to outliermagazine.co. That's outliermagazine.co. First of all, subscribe to our podcast, rate, review it. But there you'll be able to find Jimmy's website, links to social media accounts, to the book specifically. Feel free to reach out, say hello, buy the book. Jimmy, this has been amazing. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, for your words of wisdom, for the things that you've done, for the things that you're going to continue to do. We're going to definitely follow you in your career, and we will most definitely keep in touch.
Thanks so much, Ever. Really appreciate it. Have a phenomenal day.
Absolutely, we will. Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Bye-bye now.